You doing this Wednesday? I know that I am doing well. I'm gonna go ahead and give myself the horn. You already know what time it is. It is 1 p.m. It's the best hour of your day. Tipping points and puzzle pieces. So glad that you can join us for another episode here. I'll do some housekeeping at the end, but we're so just happy and thankful that all of you continue to join in and support and are learning and taking action. Right? I had a couple conversations with folks, and folks seem to be being stirred into action. So I'm encouraged and I'm pleased. But I would be remiss if I did not bring on the master of ceremony. Hey, well, my initials are MC, but this is the master of ceremony, Mark Boatwright Frost. Now, you know that a man is great when he has to hyphenate his last name. So let's go ahead and bring him forward. Oh, we got to give him the remix clap. That's right. I don't have a scratcher, so I had to do it myself.
Ah,
How are
cool,
you
cool. Doing really
doing?
well. And so today is about water.
mm.
Mm. Are we thirsty yet?
Oh, definitely.
So when I posted this on Facebook, I said water, water everywhere. But is it?
Wow.
So here's a couple things we know. I'm going to start this right off. And it says, okay, so out of all of the water on the planet, 3% is fresh and drinkable.
3%?
3%. 3%. That's
Wow.
it. So we see this giant blue ball, and only 3% of that water is drinkable. And yet we treat water like a commodity that's endless. I have pictures somewhere of, I think it's the Cuyahoga River in Ohio on fire because of the industrial pollution in the water. And while they've cleaned it up, they always seem to say, well, we cleaned this up, we've done all of this stuff, but yeah, how much has it really been cleaned up and how much have you followed up? Right here in our own backyard, over at the 9/11 Memorial in Evergreen Park,
hmm
used to be a chemical processing plant right on the Narrows. And I have heard stories from people who caught fish that had cancers in the water there.
The fish had cancer?
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
abnormalities in the fish in the Narrows there going into the Silverdale Harbor. We have the shipyard, whom the tribe is currently suing for dumping truckload after truckload of waste into the water there. Now, I'm not saying that there's proof or wrong or anything. I'm just saying there's a lawsuit going on, and I don't know enough about it to go into details about it. But this isn't the first one. The Bremerton wastewater treatment plant, right there in Gorst, next to the shipyard, was successfully sued for $50 million by the Puget Sound keepers because of dumping stormwater dumping waste into the bay there, Sinclair Inlet. And Kitsap County is 100% aquifer. We do not get there. There's some surface water, but it's negligible. But most of our water comes from aquifers, which is deep water storage or deep earth storage of water. We don't get runoff from the mountains because we're peninsula. We're surrounded by salt water.
So, can you explain to us out here what exactly is an aquifer? Is it man made? Is it natural? Is it a
It's nat-
hybrid?
it is natural, and think of it like a giant sponge made up of earth. And there are
Mm.
pockets and pockets and pockets. Now, some people say it's an underground river, and the water does flow through these pockets, but they're like different levels of aquifer. There's like the first level of aquifer, which is fairly shallow within 100 feet. Then there's a second level of aquifer, which is more deep water. And I'm not entirely certain what goes below that, but here's the time frames. If you drain the first level aquifer, it's 700 years with no activity on the aquifer to recharge it if you have enough rainfall.
Wow.
The second level aquifer takes 10,000 years to recharge. So if you empty the aquifers, that's it. It's not happening in your lifetime. It's not happening in seven of a lifetime, 7 generations. And if you do the second level of aquifer, it's not happening for 10,000 years.
Hmm. I had no idea.
So when we talk about California and we talk about them being into the second level aquifer and draining that down to provide the agriculture they provide, and this has all happened in 100 years, we're talking about they aren't going to be able to recharge these anytime soon,
Hmm.
anytime in our lifetime, anytime in 100, 200, 300 lifetimes. And we treat water like it's endless. It's not. So we just before the show started, we were talking about the Bremerton City Council, and we were talking about the government a little bit. And I might have said something like, I think that they're very dysfunctional. And I think I used a harsher term than that, but dysfunctional is pretty good.
We weren't
Uh,
live yet.
yeah. So here's the thing. I have over the last 6 months seen several posted comments and interviews talking about how Kitsap County is just ready for growth, and we're going to have another 200,000 people in the next 5 to 10 years on the Kitsap Peninsula. And I can understand that that represents dollar signs to a lot of people,
Hmm.
certainly to the developers, certainly to the cities, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. But let's stop a moment and step back. Now, you've heard me say on this program before, and I'm going to say it again. I have talked to several water experts in this area in Kitsap County, and no one seems to agree on what's going on with the water tables in the aquifers. The tribe is extraordinarily concerned. KPUD has mentioned that they're concerned. They're concerned about pollutants. They're concerned about the status of the water tables. They're concerned about people not knowing what our water tables are doing. So let's take that for a moment and then step back and think about bringing 200,000 more people onto the Kitsap Peninsula without knowing what our water tables are doing. Does this seem like good long-term sustainable thinking? Or does this seem like poorly thought out ways to generate income? And that's actually a question you, Marwan.
I would say that it doesn't seem well thought out. I would love to get, some of our planners on to see what they have done because we know people are doing something. What it is, I'm not sure based on what you're sharing with me. I know it's alarming, right? And I wonder not only just on the peninsula, which we are uniquely situated, but just from a national standpoint, what are we doing with our own infrastructure? What are we doing with our development? We have an issue with homelessness. We have challenges with immigration. So what are we doing? Looking up in New York, we're cramming more and more people into that space. What are there over 8 million people in that little block, right? And it's like
Yep.
we have all of this Midwest, and suburbs in all these different states. Why are we? There's just no reason for us to be living the way that we are here in this country.
Well, we have this mindset that we have endless resources and we're entitled to whatever we have here. The trouble is that takes away from our children's future. I was talking to this guy at Lowe's this morning, guy named Chris. He's 25, and we were talking about the future. And I was talking about what we do with resilient ecosystems in the Kitsap Resiliency Project. What our focus is to build a grassroots network to ask these questions and get the answers, to start pushing us toward a different way of looking at things. And he was going, "Oh man, where's your card? I'm going to go check out your website, and I'm going to go listen to Tipping Points and Puzzle Pieces." So, Chris,
Nice.
if you're listening today, shout out to you. Um, Great conversation at Lowe's about this. And, part of the question we're asking is, why are we doing this? We feel entitled, and it seems to be the way to go. We are entitled. We don't even ask questions about resources, and we should start asking questions about resources. We're watching what's going on, the drama going on with the Colorado River. Have you been following that, Marwan?
Uh, Slightly, not as closely as I should.
Okay, so you know that the Colorado River hasn't gone to the Mexican border for probably 40 years now, and it's hundreds of miles short of the Mexican border, which it used to flow all the way down to.
Wow.
The federal government has now stepped in and set restrictions on each state as a federal mandate because the states weren't taking it seriously and setting their own. Now let's talk about what the states are doing. The states are developing homes in the desert where people aren't meant to live.
Are you talking about where they're cutting the people off from their own water?
Well, that's part of what they're doing. Yeah, but
Mhm.
basically, they set mandates for the state saying, okay, Colorado, you're going to lose. You're going to give up. You're going to have to cut back 12% of your water usage. Period. We gave you years to settle this thing out, and you guys couldn't do it. So we're stepping in, and this is what you're going to do. Because you don't have any more water, and you're taking it from the Colorado River because there's no water in the desert, and we need another golf course in the desert taking bunches of water. Now
Mhm.
there are solutions to a lot of this, and we'll talk about those shortly. But what we need to set right now is an understanding that we don't live more than 3 days without water. You don't live 3 days without water. I don't live 3 days without water. Nobody on this planet who is a human being lives 3 days without water. Okay, you understand that? Own that, because that's the first level. Second level is you don't have food without water. So, what would you say the most valuable resource on our planet is?
Definitely
If we don't
water.
live without it, it would be water.
Yeah.
And we treat it like it's nothing.
Well, some of us treat it like it's nothing. There are folks that are starting to privatize water, which is a scary thought.
Well, yeah, it's Nestle Corporation has a agreement with a tribe in California to pump water out of their aquifers and bottle the water and sell the bottled water. That's how Nestle's bottled water is sold. And then, of course, when you're talking about Nestle's bottled water, you've got to look at all the sub corporations they have to know who you're actually buying from. Libby's is a Nestle company, I believe. So, there's all of these ways to hide that. And the CEO of Nestle said that water is not a right, water should be owned, which raised a whole lot of things. But, we haven't changed our behavior because we need those Nestle Crunch bars, and Swiss
Wait.
Miss.
They said water is not a right.
Yeah.
This is just terrifying.
So,
It's terrifying.
yeah, if it interferes with their profit, it's not a right. Things we need to live, to survive more than 3 days, are not a right for human beings, according to some CEOs.
It's hard to hear. I know it's true. It's so hard to hear.
Yeah. So we can recycle water. We have had the technology for 40 years. Gentleman out of South Carolina, Greensboro, South Carolina, has a company called, God, I'm going to blank on this. He's got a wastewater treatment company, and they can actually take wastewater treatment and bring the water back up to potable levels for drinkable water. You couldn't even tell that where the source came from. We've had that technology for 40 years. We don't apply it. I'll go back to the story I told about Mexico and the state of Chihuahua, and the fact that their the desertification, ongoing desertification because of climate change, ended 80% of their agriculture and
Mm.
created an outmigration of over 100,000 people to Juarez, Mexico, which created the social criminal crisis in Juarez that we hear about constantly. And they say, we don't hear the cause, we just hear that Juarez is a horrible city. Okay. I've been to Juarez. It's not that horrible. It's just that there's a lot of criminal activity because we had 100,000 people who suddenly lost their livelihood and are looking for a solution. And Mexico is not able to address that, but neither would the United States be. And Syria certainly wasn't, because they have a civil war that basically caused Syria to become what the state it is now. So water is at the center of all of these issues. And yet we treat water like it's nothing. We open the tap. As long as we can turn on that tap water and get water, we're all good, right? As long as we can take a 10-minute shower, we're all good. We don't think
10
about where
minutes.
the water goes.
Hey, I should just mute my camera now because I'm definitely one of those people. I'm guilty.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be a problem if we recycled the water, would it?
Mm.
But, you know,
We're not recycling the water.
we're not.
So
That
where does
just
the
goes.
water go? Because
That
I don't
is,
know where the water goes.
it's called gray water, and it goes into the waste treatment system. It gets treated and then released.
So we don't recycle it back in.
No,
Well,
we
we
pump
could.
it. We pump new water out. We don't. We hardly recycle water at all. And now they're screaming for desalination because we have this huge problem. We're not talking about recycling water, which we've had the technology for 40 years. We're talking about creating billion-dollar desalination plants to pull seawater and make it drinkable. Because there's no other possible solution for, having water. We've got to take it from another source and create a whole nother waste stream because we can't be bothered to recycle the water when we have the technology to do it.
You know what's interesting is, you had mentioned this before, and it didn't hit me until we're going more in depth. But the way we're so wasteful, right?
Hmm.
And the need is so great that if we do find a way to effectively, uh, in a way that's not cost prohibitive, to desalinate the water on a grand scale, what's going to happen to our salted water, our oceans, and our seas as we're
Uh,
over consuming it like we do everything else?
so
Like, what's going to happen to the ecosystem?
exactly so. Who knows? But I will tell you one thing that is a big question.
Wow.
So when you desalinate water, you end up with brine sludge at the end of it because you have to do something with the briny sludge that comes out of the water when you're making it fresh water, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that gets pumped back into the ocean, raising the salinity level. So what's that going to do to the ecosystem?
Probably kill everything off.
So on the other side of it, maybe it'll balance out because the ice shelves are melting and bringing fresh water into the salt water, changing the salinity level there. Maybe it'll all balance out in the end. But the bottom line is, I will challenge that human beings do not know enough. I've got a lot of things I'm thinking about saying right now, but I'm just going to try and balance back.
I
Do
can
not,
see it. It's like, nope, can't say
yeah,
that one. Nope, that's not good for children. Nope, that's not good for some adults.
yeah. We need to pull our head out of a dark, smelly place, and that's the cleanest one I can come up with. Because we don't know what we don't know, and we act like we do. I mean, let me go back to the lab grown meat stuff. I'm not really ready to go eat something that's come out of a test tube that they're calling chicken. I don't care, that it's the DNA of a chicken that's been cloned. I'm not interested in eating it because I don't think that they know enough to actually make that healthy.
Let me
And
ask
I
you a
don't want to,
question,
and,
Mark.
and I don't want to be the test subject that finds out that I've got some horrible disease because I ate it.
Or new growth.
Yeah,
Uh, let me ask you this. I love RVs. I've never
right.
been in an RV. I've never stayed the night in an RV. But I'm like, you know what? I think it would be, great to live in an RV. I've seen YouTube channels, and these things are pretty fancy, right? They're nicer
Right.
than some home constructions. My thought is, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I know that they have clean water and gray water, and the RVs have to dump that water, right?
Yeah,
Is there a way that we could retrofit and also in our new homes build it to where we recycled our water and we had the gray water come in to
absolutely.
fill our toilets and our clean water?
Absolutely.
So we could do
Absolutely.
something like that.
We've had that capability for 40 years.
Does anyone do that? Any
Yeah.
any country?
Aquionics out of South Carolina. They build wastewater treatment plants to do that. They've built them all up the west or the east coast of the United States. They have one in Okanagan in Washington, but very few people are hiring them to do it because the big wastewater treatment companies that build 80-year-old technology that doesn't suit us anymore. This is why Bremerton got sued and won by the Puget Sound Keepers, because the stormwater and the wastewater were in the same plant, and the stormwater kept flushing the wastewater into the sound.
Mm.
You hear about all those spills that happen. It's because wastewater treatment plants are predominantly built on the water, and the
Mm.
stormwater flushes
Mm.
out the sewage into the sound.
And then we fish on the docks that are right next to it and take those fish home that have cancer. I
Yep.
never heard of cancer in fish. Like, this is just really disturbing.
You'll see tumors.
Tumors
Yeah,
on the fish.
on the fish that were being caught. And so, it's a super fun site, and now it's a park where your children play.
Amy says Bill Gates made a pretty good toilet.
Yeah, and there are a lot of really cool things. They've done some amazing things with composting toilets, but again, it's going to take a change of behavior. I mean, you saw the toilets that came out with the two buttons, one for solid, one for liquid, that are
Mhm.
on the top.
Mhm.
Where have those gone? You don't see them except in very high end homes,
Yeah.
because treating the human behavior of peeing in one place so you can not so you can minimize the water, and using flush only for solids, um,
I do
is
see them in
something.
more and more hotels, though. Like, I'm
Yeah,
encouraged that way. Like, because
yeah,
they're looking at it from a bottom line, it's like, hey, there's a little bit more upfront cost for this toilet, but on the other end, we're saving, our water cost goes down massively.
yeah. And if you go up to yeah, I mean that technology, Amy. That technology. Okay, the statement was it turns human waste into drinkable water. It takes the gray water and treats it. The waste itself becomes um, non-toxic material. Matter of fact, West Sound Utility District. I think they may have changed their name, but the West Sound Utility District out of Port Orchard has a membrane wastewater treatment center, which is one of the newer ones. And they can actually take the sludge and clean it up to the point where you could use it in your garden.
Oh, in your garden, okay.
In your garden.
But Amy says drinkable water.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is you can take the gray water, and everything else, and clean everything else out of it and bring it back to potable water. And as a matter of fact, Marwan, I'm going to say that we should do a not a retreat, but a trip together with our staff up to Islandwood on Bainbridge Island, because they
Okay,
do a brilliant job of showing how this works.
really?
Yes.
Okay.
They have a living machine there that runs wastewater through plants and trees that clean it up.
For me, sometimes I just don't want to know how the sausage is made. Ignorance is bliss. And it's like thinking about, you turning human waste to drinkable water is scary, but I know it's
Well,
necessary.
there's a step missing there, is that they separate out the waste, the solids from the liquids,
Well,
and then the liquids are
and to
treated.
be fair, I know I consume probably far worse things than this conversion. So, just
Yeah.
saying.
So, but it's a mindset. We have to learn how to look at it differently. And that's the step that we have to take. And that's a step of education. And that isn't going to happen by doing podcasts or commercials or PSAs. It's going to happen by people talking to each other.
Amy says, haha. But you know what? It's helpful because, again, you and I, we come on here every week and I learned something I had no idea about. This is all new information for me.
And it's something that, and here I am connecting the dots a little bit. So I'm gonna step back for just a second and say, so we talked about food,
Mm-hmm.
we've talked about power, now we're talking about water. All of these things are necessary for us to maintain life as we know it. None of these things are guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we have to rethink how we approach those issues. I think together we can sit down and say, I don't like the insecurity I feel around water. I mean, and I'm going to throw something out there for you. How often do you just walk to the tap and fill a glass of water and drink it from the tap?
I don't at all. My tap does not taste right, so I put it in a Brita pitcher
Yep.
and let it chill before I drink it. It's really weird tasting.
Yeah, and we do the same thing, except ours is pure as opposed to Brita. I
I
mean,
mean, I
but
don't even take
yeah,
medicine from the tap. I'll cook it with it. I won't use a Brita pitcher to because I'm boiling it.
yeah.
Uh, I'll rinse off, salad, lettuce, things like that. But yeah, I will not drink the water.
So we are already showing that we have an insecurity around water.
Hmm.
You don't trust it enough to go to your tap and drink the water from your tap. I don't
But
either.
I brush my teeth with it.
So do I.
But I have the toothpaste to mask the taste. You know what I mean?
But
So
but the question is, what's in it? So let me tell you a story.
man, I
And I
don't know
wish,
if I want to hear this.
and
You-
I
you-
and I want to go back to, well, two stories actually. But the first one is, and I'm been trying to find this article for 3 years now. I had it on a drive and I don't have it anymore, and I've got to figure out where the hell it went. But a mother had some serious health issues with her kids. Their behavior changed 100%. They went from loving, kind, interactive, engaged children to slow learning, aggressive children in a fairly short amount of time. And she went from one doctor to another, to another, to another. They ran test after test after test. And finally, after her own reading, she said, "Can you please test them for lead poisoning?"
Mm.
And the doctor said, "Why? We don't have lead poisoning anymore." And she said, "No, please just test them." Strangely enough, they tested positive for lead poisoning. Now, lead poisoning is still rampant. Matter of fact, at this point, many years later, 10 years later, we've shown that 1 in 4 children have lead poisoning in this country. One in
One in
four.
four?
1 in 4. That's 25% of our children have lead
Wow.
poisoning. And I know you have a daughter in that age range.
Yep.
So here's how that happened. We knew that lead in paints was being painted in houses and that it was causing lead poisoning in our children. And the paint companies stopped using lead and did this multi-million dollar campaign talking about how they stopped using lead and the problem has suddenly disappeared, except for all of the homes that had lead paint in them. So here's the other side of the lead story. And this has been ongoing, and it's still a crisis in this country, and no one has addressed it because it's going to cost money to address. So we have to, and you said earlier about money, if it doesn't cost too much. When do we question when it costs, when how many people die? When does it become cost effective? What is the equation between human life and the need to spend money to fix it? I don't know
Well,
that equation. I sure wish I did, because I feel a lot less insecure most of the time.
hey, we just went through COVID, so I still think we don't know that equation, right?
Yeah. So maybe that's the question needs to be asked of the state, and maybe that's the question needs to be asked of city councils and county commissioners is, what is the equation exactly of when money needs to get spent, regulations need to be put in, and we need to start managing systems? What is the equation of human life versus shareholder profit? Where does that line cross? Where is that point? Because the other half of that is California's aquifer issue.
Mm.
EPA has shown that there are toxic levels of cadmium being shown up in spinach, and I can pretty much assure you it's showing up in all kinds of other leafy greens that haven't been tested. Because heavy metals like lead, mercury, arsenic, cadmium, all sit on the bottom of aquifers. And when you pump the water out and you get down to the bottom water, guess what? That all starts coming up.
Mm.
And Amy's saying she has lead paint in her home, and she got a purifier for the tap because it worries me.
Oh wow. So what do you do if you have lead? Can you paint over it? Is that safe
You know, you
enough?
need to. The only way to really deal with it is to strip it completely masked. It's a hazmat situation. You strip the paint, you sand down the boards, and you repaint after that. You basically have to eradicate it and remove it. It is a remediation process.
So what do you do if you're in a rental? You just kind of SOL?
Well, okay. So there are things about the safety of homes that are the landlord's responsibility, and lead paint is one of those things. And I think you'll find that there's yes, there is a way to get your water tested. There are labs around that don't cost too terribly much to have the water tested. Now, I'll get back to that question in just a second. I'm going to finish up with this one. I would
Hmm.
check with the state laws on landlord requirements for safety of the house, because there are ways to deal with it that way. Um, but yeah,
And the answer isn't just to tell the person to move because they're going to move another person in.
right. And the thing is that where are they going to move to? Because if you watch the John Oliver thing on rent, the private equity companies who now own most of the rental properties in the country will tell you that this is the best time in their lives because there's no place for people to go and they can keep jacking them all the time.
Wow, look at this comment from Amy. She says, I rent and I had to sign and amend them.
Yeah.
So is
So I
that
would
saying
go,
that you're moving in, understanding what might be in here? Is that what that
yeah.
was, Amy?
Yeah. And I'm not entirely certain that that's legal, but they will try and make it legal.
Wow. Wow.
So you're getting an education today, Marwan. How you feeling now? You feeling pumped up and happy about everything?
Cognitive dissonance. I'm ready to go run and hide and oh man. It's
So let me
I
tell
mean,
you my
there's so
secret.
many things to worry about, and you said something about the where's the line from safety to corporate profits, but then I think there's it's threefold, right? There's three legs on that stool, and that other leg is that don't tread on me, right? Folks
Right.
wanting to feel like they can do what they want to do and not be impacted by a bunch of regulation, because it may cause them to have to strip their home of their lead paint, right? Uh, Man, yeah,
It's
this
gonna
is tough.
cost them money, and and the thing is, it's always that a mold as well. Yeah. Um, they made her by
Wow.
a demuter. Yeah. So I would talk to. There is, I'm gonna piss Stephanie off right now. Stephanie knows of the links to people who do defense of for renters. There's a local entity that does legal defense for renters, and I would make sure that you find that out from Stephanie and contact them and talk to them about this and find out what can be done. I
I
can't
could I
answer
could
that
actually
question.
pop that up.
Okay.
So there's a few here. Kitsap Legal would be one.
Yeah.
Uh, Kitsap Dispute Resolution Center, and I'll just pop these up there because they will. If you call one and it's not them, they will guide you. They were just here for. This is a big one here. Washington Law Help. This is free. www.washingtonlawhelp.org. And then there's also a link to your tenants' rights handbook, which is
Yep.
really powerful. And so that is free online at www.washingtonlawhelp.org. And when you're on that website, just go to resource and then your rights as a tenant in Washington, and you'll get the up to date tenants handbook.
Exactly. So, and the fear, I understand the fear and the security about this. I mean, we just got our rent jacked 25% here where we live. And I got to tell you, they're not doing 25% upgrades for me. As a matter of fact, the upgrades they're doing are unbelievably unprofessional.
Mm-hmm.
And they're doing it in the weirdest freaking manner I've ever seen. And Terry and I were talking about that this morning, that, they're doing things haphazard. They don't finish one building and move to the next. They're just like jumping around to all 300 units.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like going, really, guys? And what part of logistics and operations do you not understand?
Well, to be a little critical of that location, I won't say where it is, but we were actually contracted to replace their roofs, and we did an awesome job. They loved us, and then the property sold. And so, what the new owners have decided to do is fly extremely cheap labor out of California, have them do this kind of shotgun repairs and work on the most emergency things, like you said, right? All right, let's fix this and go. And there's a
Oh,
tenant that we know. who hasn't had heat for almost 8 months, and they constantly have to go in and have them come back to try to repair it, right? Um, so I'm just saying, quality
Yeah,
work was being done by G2 Construction,
and
and
it's not
they
well,
went the cheaper way.
and they just painted our building, and they painted the grass as well because no tape was used anywhere.
Oh yeah, yeah. We were also painting, also. So we were turning over the apartments. We were doing all that stuff, and the previous owners, absolutely loved us.
Yeah, and so and we won't talk about who they are,
Yeah,
but that
we
we'll
won't
say
mention
that this
them by
comment,
name.
and I will say that on the how's the Resilient Ecosystems webpage, we have a link to the John Oliver Last Week Tonight show on rent. I suggest people watch it because it will give you an idea of what's going on. And if that doesn't motivate you to come talk to your neighbors and find better ways to do things, nothing on earth will.
And I think Rob's absolutely right. I'll just make a caveat there. If you don't know your rights, some landlords will take advantage of you. There are good landlords out there. I don't want to typecast all of them because there are some awesome,
Yeah. Okay.
awesome ones out there.
So I'm going to say this out loud to counter what Marwan just said. Landlords fall under the 80-20 rule. 20% of them
Okay.
are good. 80% of them are not.
Touche, sir. Touche.
So yeah, yeah, I agree. They painted our front door, but didn't open it to paint it. So we have
I'm just not gonna. I
strips
gotta
around
put
the
my coffee
outside.
down.
This is atrocious. But let's get back to water because that's what we're here to talk about. Um, so water everywhere. Desalination is expensive. It deals with the ocean. We use water like like it's an endless supply. Yet there's only 3% of fresh water on the planet. We pollute water without thinking. I was talking to one of the former CEOs or executive directors of Kitsap Public Utility District, and he said he wakes up at 2 in the morning thinking about nitrate pollution from the local farmers
What?
in the water because of the chemicals they use in their farming.
Wow.
Not all of our local farmers are organic, healthy CSA farms. Some of them are, cattle farms where you have to worry about feces and other things getting into the water supply. There are other people that use Roundup and other farming and gardening, which gets into the groundwater and the water tables. And these things pollute the water
So
and
let me
make
ask
it
you, Mark. Let me
dangerous.
ask you a question. I want to live in the solution here, and I'm glad that you brought this up. So you've got both sides of the fence here, right? The farmers
Mhm.
are saying, "Hey, don't tread on me. This is expensive." Should we subsidize and so that they can use products that don't harm us, or do we say, "Hey, that's the price of doing business. If you want to be a farmer, then you got to do what you got to do."
Well, I think that we need to offer them viable solutions as part of it, which means that we have to look at the problem. We have to get the discussion going. And remember that before I ran Resilient Ecosystems, I ran an organization called the Clean Technology Trade Alliance. And we spent 20 years looking at clean technologies and solutions all over the world. The solutions are out there. They are not being adopted because people want to sell what they already have, not pay money to innovate better solutions.
So is this part of lobbying also, right? Big money in
Well,
whatever these sectors are,
yeah,
and
it's about okay. So again, tipping point when 20% of the people are all moving in one direction, everybody else follows along. That includes the corporations because the market just shifted.
mm,
So if people are not buying your product anymore because it's outdated, it doesn't meet their needs, and they're not just trying to make do with it. Their corporations are going to start shifting to a more sustainable platform. Because
I,
corporations are not people, corporations are machines. And the machines follow the trends. We just
Amy had
aren't
a,
making the trends.
yeah, Amy had a good comment. She says, "I always wondered how big of an effect theme parks cause."
Well, I will tell you that it depends on the theme park. In Nevada, it took a much lower hit from the federal government about the Colorado River than its neighboring states did, because Nevada, while building Las Vegas, pioneered water reuse. So those fountains get recycled. Those water parks get recycled. They don't use the same. They use the same water recycling and reaffecting it. So they're using a percentage of it. They have all these beautiful things that are using a much lower percentage of water than, let's say, Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, and Colorado are.
Fascinating. Fascinating.
And we could do the same here. It's just the incentive of to do it, and that comes from we the people deciding that this does not stand for us, and we need a different way of looking at it. This all comes back to the same thing over and over again. And this gentleman, the young man Chris, said he never heard it said so simply as when I explained to him, when you think of our culture as a cancer, and you think of all of the things that are wrong, the racism, the inequality, all of these other things that are wrong as symptoms of the cancer, we're never going to finish fighting those things until we address the cancer. And the only way we can address the cancer is together, as we the people. So, I mean, it's as simple as that. We have to start having conversations together and set aside our partisanship of whatever form it's going to take and find human commonality and say, I'd really like to have water tomorrow. I'd really like to have water in 10 years. So what is it going to take for us to do that?
Well, I asked folks, imagine, we're in the middle of a cold snap right now. It was 32 degrees this morning. It was in the 20s earlier, right? All across the United States, we're in this space, and folks lose power, right? And even during the hot months, we have brownouts in certain places. Imagine if you lost water for that amount of time. That's a scary thought, and I never considered it. I go and I flick the switch and I expect my lights to come on. Well, I'm a little now it's an app. My house runs on apps, but it's ridiculous. I have an expectation that all of this stuff is going to work. I hit a button, it works. I do this, it works.
And how do you feel if it suddenly stops?
Well, you saw how it was last Wednesday, right? I wasn't in a good way. That was just the internet. I was beside myself last week.
So, I put out that meme a while back about the woman that looks like, upper middle class blonde woman with her hands on her face like this saying, "Oh my God, why didn't you tell me? I have no more plastic for my ski boots because it's either that or gas for my car. I have no more water to drink. I have no more." And that's the thing, is we're going to come to a point, if we don't come together, where that's a reality. I mean, I don't think we're going to be drinking mud right now, but muddy water right now, but that's a possibility in the future if we don't
I have my
come
life
together. So yeah, why don't you put up the not the water for all, but the other webpage?
Okay.
Let's talk about that for a minute. So for those of you who don't know, and I don't know how you don't know if you've watched the show at any time, because we talk about this every week, on the Resilient Ecosystems website, we have several web pages that talk about the problems and the solutions. Now, again, only 3% of all water on the planet Earth is fresh, non-saline water. 3%. That means 97%, for those of you who are doing the reverse math, is not drinkable. You can't just go put a cup in it.
Mark, let me interrupt you. Is 3% now? Were the numbers higher? Was the percentage higher in the past? Are we
No, this is global. This is global understanding of 3% water. That's all we've ever had.
Oh, okay. So it's static. It hasn't gone up or down.
Okay. Well, it's going down because we're polluting the hell out of what we have.
3% is terrifying.
Yeah, but that's the reality, though. So if you can scan down just a little bit, this page doesn't have a whole lot on it. I'm rewriting it now with the beginning of the year. Okay, so dominoes and dots are dominoes because they fall over and cascade, dots because we like to connect dots. These are articles about this that talk about what's going on. I mean, fracking. 8 years ago, I was in New York 8 or 9 years ago, I was in New York, in Rhinebeck, New York, at an event talking about clean technology and everything. And they were showing fracking chemicals showing up in the New York City water supply, and they were fracking in upper state New York. There's an article here about that that's recent. So over the 7 years or 8 years, they were unable to do anything about it because fracking chemicals are grandfathered in. You don't have to um, comment on them. You don't have to declare them. It just is a thing. Now, same thing with pig farmers in the Carolinas. The uh, the pig feces and how they're treated with, and the fact that they've got 20 million gallon tanks of pig feces. One of them broke and killed 100 miles of the Nueces River. You don't have to do. There's nothing they can do environmentally about that because it's grandfathered in.
Wow.
And then I recommend to everybody to go check out the American Society of Civil Engineers report card on the American infrastructure. Don't eat beforehand because you'll be nauseous afterwards. So Marwan, we talk about this a lot, and you go, this is new, and I'm feeling really horrified about this whole thing. And
Oh
I
no,
live with
please.
this. I live with this all the time. And hold on a second. Let me.
Is that all wipeout? That's kind of apropos for today's podcast.
Yeah. Hold on. Somebody's. Oh, you guys can. Sometimes these push finger phones don't turn off when you tell them to turn off. Um. Okay, so how I get through this, how I'm optimistic, how I do this is really simple. Here's the secret to my optimism. I put one foot in front of the other, and I know that every time I connect with somebody, it's going to get closer to being better. I put one foot in front of the other, and as long as I'm making forward progress, it's getting better. Even if I can't see it every day, I'm a little closer.
It just seems like we're so far over the ledge, right? And I get what you're saying, and I kind of operate from that also, right? I still have hope, I still have faith, otherwise I wouldn't do it. I would become a survivalist and go out in the woods and try to weather the storm. And I believe we can be pulled back from the brink, but a lot of times it's hard, right? I learn more and more every day, and you're trying to survive at the same time, and it's like, holy crap, man. The way to put one foot in front of the other is just to say, hey, you know what? I've got water today. I just got to deal with the emergency in front of me now, right? I need $4 of gas. You know what I mean? So I'll just deal with that, and I'll come back around to that, and you look up, and then it's 2 months, and then it's a year, and then it's like, oh yeah, the water thing. Um,
So let me just throw your
man,
own words. I'm going to throw your own words back at you here.
go ahead.
Many hands make light work.
Well, yeah, we got some hands in the chat, so
Yep.
absolutely.
We need people talking to each other. And, Rob's heard me say this a lot of times. Amy's now hearing me say this. A lot of other people have popped in and popped out. The young man, Chris, today, there was a young lady at a store the other day that was really excited about what we're doing. Amy picked up our materials yesterday and was reading through about the different projects we're doing. We are rolling up our sleeves and doing the work, and people are coming on board. Now you don't get to see that because you're basically doing your thing, and you only get it when I give you reports and such. And we have a board meeting tomorrow, and we'll be talking about this stuff and the other things that are going on. And hopefully, I'll give it to you in one big bundle very shortly when I finish the year-end report. Then talk about all the good things that have happened.
Oh, the good things. Okay, the good things. So like, I don't know if I can take it all in one bundle.
Yeah, no,
This
we will
hour is
talk about.
already enough.
So last year, about this time, I finished up the very first annual end of year annual report about what Resilient Ecosystems has accomplished, where the Kitsap Resiliency Project is, and I'm in the process of finishing up the 2022, and I'm hoping to be done by mid February. which we'll be able to put that out, and we'll be able to talk about the successes. And I will tell you that while sometimes it's depressing when I'm sitting here trying to get something done, or I'm running into it, or I have to deal with permitting, or the state, or the entities that seem to want to make life difficult for you as opposed to just doing things in a straightforward manner,
Hmm.
and I get frustrated, we have made tremendous progress this year. We have made tremendous progress this year, and we're making more all the time. And we're getting allies all the time because people are starting to hear what we're saying, because we say it often enough and in different ways that people start hearing the humanity in the conversation and the cry for humanity. So don't get depressed by this. This has been the same way for 50 years, 100 years. The crisis is not a day in making. Learning about it now isn't going to solve it, but it's a step towards solving it. And understanding that helps you understand how the dots connect and gives you the perspective to see not only what the scope of the problem is, but to see the cancer that's causing it, but also to understand that we can cure the cancer together. But together is the only way we can.
Now, I think we should do an exercise where adults kind of go through this experience where the future, based on if we just continue the way that we're going, what it's going to look like, and then have them really imagine their children or their grandchildren living in that, with them being long dead and not there to support or help them through it. And
Yeah,
maybe that will help to stir the apathy that exists and cause people to start moving toward action. Because when you say, okay, well, yeah, you have an 11-year-old, and what world do you want to leave her? I can't really think,
too many
I
things
can't
going on.
materialize it. I
Yeah,
can't make it real. But to have someone sit in it and say, this is what it looks like. This is where they get water. This is where they get food. Here's where you have,
yep,
massive starvation and health issues and civil unrest over the resources that are bountiful now, and just really painting that picture and saying, hey, here's what we can do to change that now. We need to do A through Z, and we need to start doing it now in order to let
we
that
do.
not be
But
the situation.
here's the part that I need to reiterate with you, because I know that when I say we the people and we need to come together is vague. I mean, that seems like a vague answer, but let's talk about why it's not vague.
Hmm.
In order to do any of these solutions, and I just had this conversation with somebody who writes a lot of articles. I said, okay, great, you're preaching to the choir and you're talking about what should be done. What we're doing is how to do it.
Hmm.
We teach people how to do it. We teach people how to build community networks in their neighborhood, how to connect those neighborhoods, how to make it go bigger. Because none of what we know should happen will happen until the people say, you're going to do this
Yeah.
because we're telling you to.
Yeah.
That's the simple bottom line. I mean, it seems complex. I mean, it seems vague, but it's not. It is what is written into our Constitution of the United States as our method for making changes to make things better. We can change the government. We can change the corporations. All we have to do is come to agreement. And I know that seems completely overwhelming because we have Republicans, we have Democrats, we have Christians, we have Jews, we have Muslims, we have jihadists, we have this, we have that. All of these things that keep us different. But you know something that isn't different? And you and I say this at the end of each and every program. We all pee the same way.
Is that what we say at the end of every program? I think it's a new one for me.
But, we're all human. We are all human. We all need the same things.
I thought
Say
you
it
were a
with
sinner,
me.
sir.
So, how many days can we live without water, Marwan? How many days can we live without
Three
water?
3 days.
3 days without water. Does that not make us the same?
Yeah,
Does a Republican or Democrat make a damn bit of difference? Does skin color make any difference at all when we're looking at 3 days without water?
not at all.
That's where we need to be.
And if you don't have 3 days of water, you need to start investing in that. Like folks tell you, financial literacy, save money. You need to save water.
Yeah,
You
I
need
mean,
to save water.
bring it down to the simplest common denominator, and do whatever you can to have what you need in your house. And since both of you know where I live, storage here is a real issue, and trying to figure out where to store things is a problem.
Hmm.
So if you have a storage unit that you're using to store emergency supplies and such, make sure it's walking distance.
Well, and some of it's priority too.
Yep.
We talk about it. I have well, I don't know, 6, 7, 5 gallon jugs of water, right?
Yeah.
Because the thing is also, it's 5 gallons per person per day, right?
Yep.
Is the average of what you should have. And so for 3 days of water, I need 15 gallons of water. So that's how you think about it. So if it's me and Layla, we need 30 gallons of water to make it 3 days.
Okay.
I'm trying to make it a month, right?
So here's another thing you need. You need to go get a Sawyer water filter.
A what?
A Sawyer, Sawyer water
Okay.
filter.
Ooh,
They're
what's that?
about they're about oh 6 inches long, 4 to 6 inches long. What the military uses, the U.S. Armed Forces uses as a water filter. They have a commercial brand. You can get it at Bimart. You can buy it on Amazon. They're about $21. I'm not getting anything from Sawyer to say this. It's just that literally you can drive a car over it; they won't break. You can back. It's the only one I know of that you can back flush if the water starts getting funky, um, so that you
Uh,
can
these
continue to
here,
use it. And it's good for 100,000 gallons.
these images I'm
Yeah,
showing.
that's it.
Okay, and I'm pulling it here because we're not advertising any particular show, but
Nope.
Cabela's, Amazon, or a store. Amazon, I think you said Walmart Plus, Plus Mart, something like
No,
that.
Bimart over in Port
Bimart,
Oak.
Bimart. Sorry about that. Uh, so is that the same thing as the Life Straw? Because that's what I have. I have a
No,
Life
Life
Straw.
Straw is actually a very, very lightweight grade. You won't get much out of it. It's easy to break. The Sawyer is much more robust. And again, you can back flush it if the water starts getting funky. You just put the water source in the other end and flush it out.
Gotcha. Ooh, Sawyer 1 gallon gravity water filtration
Yeah,
system. I like that.
yeah. You can do up to 100,000 gallons with one of the filters.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Rob says, does it work like a Life Straw?
Uh, well, no. What you do essentially is if you've got a water source, you find a empty bottle, you flush it out as much as you can, you fill it with the water source, you put the Sawyer on it because it'll screw right onto any normal plastic bottle cap. You turn it upside down and you press the water through it, and it'll give you clean water on the other end.
So maybe putting a rain barrel underneath my gutters, things like that.
Yep.
Okay.
And then run the water through the Sawyer, and you should be good to go.
Ooh, maybe we have all kinds of cool things we should do this spring, like set this up so people can see, especially for renters, right? If you have little
Yep.
patios and can catch that runoff. Uh, I know
So
folks
just
will set up tarps in between
yeah.
trees.
Yeah, so understand that Washington State has has two ridiculous laws. One of them is a law against capturing rainwater because of the Growth
What?
Management Act. In Washington State, it is against the law to capture rainwater, but Kitsap County has determined that that is ridiculous and has decided to turn their head. At least that's my understanding of it. Don't quote me. And if you're a lawyer, that I'm not a lawyer, so but it is there is in the Growth Management Act as part of it, and then the other ridiculous law is we have a law on the books in Washington State that prevents us from having rent control.
We'll go back. We can talk about rent control in a minute. Why
Yeah,
is there a law that says we can't capture rainwater? What the hell?
because we need to have the ground absorb the water. We don't want to have people taking the water before it gets to the ground
But
because
how many people?
the Growth Management Act is about protecting the natural resources of Washington State. Now there are a lot of nuances in there that don't make a lot of sense, and I think we're more broad brushes with a paint, which is what politicians tend to do, as opposed to actually looking at scenarios in which it would apply.
But see, and that's what I was saying earlier, right? When I was talking about this, the three legs on the stool, right? The don't
Yeah.
tread on me, because that sounds like you're treading on me. There's the okay, we have to take care of our ecosystem, so we want to, this was wrought with good intentions, but that was the road paved to hell, you know. And then, the corporations and things and the lobbyists that don't want this done either because, well, there might be fewer water consumption and we can't charge people, well, whatever that is on the other side. Like if I'm living in my home and I'm just capturing some of the water, not all, because I can't capture all the water in the sky. How much water can I consume or can we consume if every resident just consumed a couple water barrels of water on their property?
Well, exactly so. And Rob brings a point is there are eco-friendly buildings that do that. I mean, they capture rainwater up at Islandwood, and there are governments, local governments that are basically saying, yeah, but the eco-friendly also have permeable pavements so that the water passes through the pavement into the ground. There are ways to mitigate this. The reason that it happened in the Growth Management Act is because we weren't doing anything to mitigate it. We were paving the county and paving the state without any thought about water going into the ground. And that's changing. So the laws have to
I
change
mean,
with the times.
this is insanity, right? It's like these are intelligent people that make the most asinine laws.
Well,
And then they don't
we
revisit the
can
laws
argue
they make when they become antiquated. And I,
no,
I'm
no law.
amazed.
Yeah, no law gets changed, and they have good intentions, but they don't. But they're looking at a small picture of time. Remember, the first class I teach in the workshops is perspective. Step back and look at beyond the small picture that you have. By the way, we are up on our hour again. We do
Hey,
this
this was a
every
hell of an
week.
hour.
Yeah.
Hell of an hour.
So you
And
thirsty?
Thursday. Yes.
Thirsty? Are you thirsty?
Oh, am I thirsty? Not really. I'm sipping my coffee here, but I'm not as thirsty as I was before. I may go ahead and boil my water here real quick before I consume it. But it does give me another appreciation of the resources that we have access to. Again, you know, this is a little soapboxy. And it's not to say that what you're going through isn't hard, because there are people that are suffering for sure in this country. But I just ask you if you're going through something, just be grateful for the resources that you do have. Consider what you have access to, and let's work at making sure that everyone has, the level of access that they need to thrive, and not just to survive, right? To be resilient, not just sufficient. So we want to go past that.
And the best way to do that is to connect with your neighbors.
Absolutely.
Many hands make light work.
For sure. So tune in an hour. We have our conversation with housing, with KCR and BHA. Tomorrow we have a very special show for you. We are going to have many of the folks that are advocating for multiple House bills that will come on. We're going to have a long format panel, and folks will come on and come off and talk about what their issue is. So whether it's immigration or prison reform or transportation, they will be coming on. Civil Survival will have some folks that repeatedly appear on NPR. So we've got some distinguished guests coming on tomorrow. So tune in for that. That starts at 1. And then this Saturday is Transit Equity Day. It's Rosa Parks' birthday. We'll be at New Horizon at 4040 Wheaton Way. 203 is the suite from 2 to 4. We're going to feed everyone. And the mayor, Mayor Wheeler, is going to proclaim that day Transit Equity Day. And so we know transportation is extremely important here in this county, as that's what G2 does, and so does Mark. So it's so important. So come out on Saturday at 2 to 4. Kitsap Black Student Union will be teaching us about transportation equity. They'll be performing for us. And so we're going to have a lot of good fun. So it's an opportunity to support the youth, get some good spaghetti, fried chicken. We're going to roll out the red carpet for you. And just kind of educate. And so that's really what Mark is talking about, right? We, the people, getting together, having the conversation, stirring people to action. And just shout out to Kitsap Black Student Union, because it's a way to empower our youth to take command and control of their planet, their world, their community now, and to be thinking about it. So Man, I thank you
And
for
they're
this
great, and they're
hour.
great kids.
Yeah. Yep. I thank you for this hour. I thank you for your education. Although I'm a little sick to my stomach, it's what we need to know. So I appreciate you.
Yep. And so, two things. One is before you go to the event, Marwan, the event, G2 event on Saturday, join us for coffee at 9:30 at Cups Cafe,
Oh yeah,
and
that
we'll
will
be
be
talking.
awesome.
Yep.
Cup Cafe, 9:30.
Yep.
Good
On
coffee,
Fourth and Pacific.
good desserts, Fourth and Pacific. All right. So for Mark Boatwright Frost, I am Marwan Cameron. This is Tipping Points and Puzzle Pieces. This is the Conduit. We'll see.